we started Jumpstart Autism in New Mexico, there was maybe three other ABA providers in the state in 2008. I quickly realized that as I started the company, that I moved out of clinical service and into business management.
Yes.
For which, on the clinical service side, I had a lot of training. I actually went pretty good. On the business administrative, luckily I had a mom that was willing to help me, that was an accountant and was managing my dad's pediatric practice. I had no experience. I had no business doing business.
Yeah.
I had no idea about medical billing. There weren't a lot of systems for it. And so it's great to have aspirations, to be ambitious, to take what you've learned and apply that. But no one knows it all. And I think that's one of the critical pieces as a business owner, and finding those individuals that can really fill in those gaps for your knowledge, your skill set gaps. And everybody has them, and it's okay to have them. It's not finding those people that can fill it. So, earlier I mentioned that, I'm really a psychologist first and then BCBA second. And I should not be training BCBAs. I don't have that skill set. Mm-hmm. Well, within Jumpstart and within our internal field practice placements, we have a training system, or kind of a whole training department. That training department oversees, on average, each RBT gets about 140 hours of training before they sit with their own client by themselves. Yes, they're working directly with clients, but we have a trainer, right. Kind of a higher level RBT that has been that probably has 3 to 4 years of experience already. Right. That's training our staff. And we have knowledge-based testing that they have to pass, and skills-based testing that they have to pass. Again, this kind of goes back to that early conversation that no one wants to deliver bad ABA. No one wants to struggle in kind of, I don't know what to do. And so creating those opportunities for supervision, providing, from people that are really knowledgeable and can do that training, because I didn't have that. And that's what builds a terrific foundation to then build quality treatment and then fill the gaps.
Yes. And I could just sit here and listen to you talk all afternoon, because all of what you're saying, like what I'm hearing is that, like, support and trust and collaborating and working together, and that, like, just one person, one professional, one individual isn't going to be able to make the difference in the same way that a group of individuals, a group working together, a group of professionals who each have their own strength and knowledge base and understanding and experience levels. And, back earlier when you were talking about medical needs and, like, being able to rule out dual diagnoses or just other situations going on outside of just, the treatment of one behavior, and I had a question that I was going to bring up to you, but you've kind of answered that in how you guys are handling that with being able to have a psychologist on board, someone who is able to diagnose, and so that yearly diagnosis, that psych consult, yearly psych consult, and then as emergencies happen, because that was one thing I was going to say is, like, okay, we talk about you don't know what you don't know. So, if you're a BCBA providing treatment for a learner, and, maybe signs come up where they have an ear infection, a lot of times that's, especially if you've been around children, if you've been around children for any amount of years, even if you haven't been a BCBA for very long, there are certain symptoms, certain signs that can kind of lead to mm-hmm. that. You say, oh, they're tugging on their ear, or they're hitting their ear, or, maybe they're not swallowing as much. Now, if you haven't had a lot of, experience with a young child, you may not know. You may think, oh, there's a sense of, like, the self-injurious behavior is coming out of nowhere. Like, let's take data, let's do a functional analysis, let's figure out, are they escaping work, are they whatever, you know. And when really it could be something simple as an ear infection and they need antibiotics, and then, you know, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
But then I just want to say one more thing, but then like, that's something that we kind of have a little bit of understanding of that. But then you add in these other major diagnoses and like dual diagnosis, like how would I even know that, oh, maybe that's, I'm just going to pull some OCD or how, you know, or some other thing. And I'm treating it as like a very basic autism trait. Anyways. Yeah. So I love that you brought that all in.
Yeah, no. And I love the example and kind of that idea of OCD it makes me think of a couple of different examples of how working with psychologists improve outcomes. And so at Jumpstart, we have kind of 3 levels of programming. The early learner, we have a transition readiness, kind of going from the early learner to getting kiddos ready to enter kindergarten, or school services, and being able to learn in group settings, things like that. And then we also have an intensive skills program, where it's individuals with challenging behaviors, different acquisition rates, and you know, typically a range of complex behaviors. And many of them are already diagnosed with profound autism. And so one of the things that comes up at every single one of these levels is this idea of, maybe not the experience of, and we get it in consults all the time, you know, the rule-bound behaviors just trigger everything, right? They want to play with their one toy, and you remove that toy and they just melt down. And they can go on and on about different triggers. And it starts to look like OCD, right? Where they're hyper-focused on it. They can't shift. They check to make sure it's there. It's interfering with all learning opportunities. And so through that psych consult, we really do start talking about other coexisting conditions and how we can think about medical interventions to support. And how I frame it is it's a positive behavioral support, right? If we can find the right medication for a known condition that's impacting a learner's ability to acquire new skills and reduce that rule-bound perseverative behavior, which some medications can also reduce significant sensory processing differences. And we can just take the edge off. That way, if and there's different medications that can do that, for which after the consult, you know, I'll call the PCP or I'll call the psychiatrist. And sometimes the child's on specific meds that's trying to reduce severe behavior. And I'll talk to the psychiatrist like, yeah, I get that this is designed to reduce challenging behavior, but that's not getting at the cause of it. Here's the cause, and here's the kind of medication we would look to have positive outcomes given the types of behaviors.